Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled Price, Quality, Time. You may pick two. Many years ago, decades even, I made fine furniture for a living in my own shop. I specialized in historical reproductions. My work was good enough to even end up in several museums, as reproduction pieces only. Understandably, originals can be quite rare. My work also featured in several movies. On one memorable occasion, I even discovered a piece I had made for sale in an antique shop. Someone had taken care to age it and it was being offered as an original. The staff were less than impressed when I pointed out it was a modern reproduction and showed them my maker's brand hidden on the underside. I was asked to leave and never come back. Oh well. I am quite flattered though. So now that you understand the type of work I produced, you should also understand some of the types of customers it attracted. After being burned a couple of times, I had a sale contract written up by my solicitor. In essence, it was an agreement for the customer to sign off on the agreed design drawings and pay 50% up front, non-refundable once work commences, to cover costs and the remaining 50% upon completion but before delivery. One of the earliest CBs was an individual who proudly claimed he never paid full price for anything. He ordered a rather nice table made, signed the contract and paid the required 50%. However, upon completion he informed me that he had decided the total price was too much and he would only be paying the original deposit. I reminded him that he had signed a contract and as a result the table would remain in my possession until fully paid for. He then tried to get me to deliver it, and he would have a check waiting. Yeah right, not falling for that one. After a 3-month standoff he finally paid the remainder when I told him I was now putting the table up for sale elsewhere to recover costs. Another common CB was the "my father, brother, uncle can make that for half the cost." I would just reply, "Okay, so why aren't they?" One CB even went so far as to have her father come into my workshop to copy the templates I use. He was firmly told that was not happening. Similar to the above is the "I can go down to Wally Mart and buy that for half the price." Well, no you can't actually, the only place these designs exist in the world is my shop, but hey, go have fun looking. Next was the type of CB who could never be satisfied. One Karen in particular comes to mind. She would hunt for anything that she considered a defect, as she put it, and demand a price reduction or else something extra free. The final straw came when I caught her pulling her car key across a polished tabletop to produce a scratch for which she then predictably demanded a discount. She was quite upset that I caught her red-handed and was even more upset when she was kicked out and banned from the premises. Lastly, there were the negotiators, who always wanted a better price or to jump the waiting list or perhaps some free extras added to their work. I would direct them to the sign on the wall which simply said, "Time, quality, cost. You may choose only two." Most of them eventually worked it out. I would like to say these were not common, but on average I would encounter at least one CB each week. Unfortunately, my countrymen were the worst for this. Short arms and deep pockets, as the saying goes. I loved dealing with the Americans though. Even after shipping they still thought my prices were cheap. Likewise, the Europeans very much appreciated quality work, although shipping to Europe was a pain. Eventually I moved to the tropics where the humidity is no good for fine woodwork and so closed my doors. While I miss the woodwork, I will never miss the choosing beggars. The next story is titled, "Don't Mess with Your Neighbor's Parking Spots." Backstory. I have lived in multiple tourist cities throughout my life. Meaning, I have had to deal with parking being a premium thing repeatedly. I grew up in a city known as a tourist hotspot. Because of that, and because I wasn't about to put up with issues with parking yet again when I moved to my 4th tourist hotspot, I paid for 2 spots. One close to my apartment and one just a ways away. Why 2 spots, you ask? Parking is a premium and guest parking is limited. Not only that, but I live far from family and they need the spot when they visit. My dad agreed with me and forks over 1/2 the bill just so he doesn't have the fight for parking either. In total for the 2 spots, we fork over $155 a month. Yesterday morning, I left to go get groceries and run some errands. It's my weekend and I needed supplies. Anyway, on my drive back, I see entitled neighbor getting out of her car in my second spot. I roll down my window and inform her that I'm having dinner guests and I would have let her use my spot had she asked, but I need her to move her car by 5 p.m. It was like 3 p. at the time. She gave me the bird and said some choice words I won't repeat in my general direction. I also try to ask her why she's using my spot when she has her own, but she doesn't respond and walks her entitled butt into the building. I go to move to my other spot, about 10 to 11 car spaces down the lot and around the corner of the building, and find someone else's parked in my main spot. I recognize the car as belonging to her friend, who comes over frequently and doesn't ask to take spots. I then realize that all the guest spots and every neighbor who's not home and has a spot is taken by unknown cars and with the windows down. Quickly figure out she's hosting a rowdy party and was too entitled to care that she and her guests are taking paid for parking spots. While I'm sitting there in my car for a minute, contemplating what to do and whom to contact, my neighbor across the hall's youngest daughter, age 16, comes running from the building and goes straight for my car. I let her in and she begins to cry distraughtly about what's been going on since her mom left, about the same time as me to run errands, which would have been like 1 p.m. She couldn't reach her mom, and because of these people, she was too scared to call for help. I was not. I called a friend in law enforcement and asked a few choice questions about removing the car. She advised that seeing as the parking spot is rightfully mine, I could just tell the property manager what was happening and then have the cars in my spots towed for illegally parking. So, I decided that was the plan I was going with. I then called up every single neighbor I had number for who I saw had their spot taken, 3 of them. I had the girl call the other neighbors so they could check their spots too. That seemed to calm her down. When we got the property manager on the phone, totaling 8 illegally parked unknown cars with 7+ angry residents making the calls to him, he took our side and started calling tow companies. At 5 p.m., on the dot, a gaggle of tow trucks, 4 of them in a row, arrived. This was due to the fact that I had warned the lady I needed her out of my spot by 5, so just to be safe, we went with this route per the suggestion of the property manager. At 5:30 p.m., entitled neighbor's friend and 2 other cars were towed from the lot with property manager directing which cars. I finally got to bring my car into a designated spot. At this point it was down the street over a block away, if anyone's wondering where I parked the car during this. Entitled neighbor didn't notice. The other 4 cars were towed less than half an hour later. I don't know why none of them noticed. Her freaking place faces the street and had to see the cars being towed. At this point, I cancelled my plans with my friends because I didn't want to have them be introduced to my entitled neighbor, as I knew she'd blow up if the bird and cursing and treatment of my neighbor's daughter were any indication. Somehow, 3 neighbors, property manager and property manager's brother, who lives at far end of the complex in another building, ended up in my place, and we chowed down on some pizza. Neighbor across the hall picked up on her way home. We all awaited the expected blow up. 6:30 p.m. Cue the angry pounding on the door and the smashing of my doorbell. As I'm getting up to answer, the property manager tells me to sit and goes to the door with his brother and 2 of the male neighbors, who have been in the complex for like 5+ years. He opens the door and stares at the woman, who is flabbergasted as to why he's in my place, and then I can hear her demanding to talk to me. My property manager informs her that if she so much as tries to talk to me, touch me or harass me in any fashion, he will have her arrested, and then goes on to do the same for the other 7 neighbors who had to have cars towed out of their spots, and their families as well, and warns that same fact to her angry friends whose vehicles were towed. He also tells the group, again it's like 10 entitled adults she had over, that if they touch any of the cars parked in their paid for spots, the lots are videotaped and he has no problem bringing police over to arrest for vandalism and trespassing. The next story is titled Woman Wants Me to Buy Food for Starving Children, tries me to pay €240. So, a couple weeks ago I passed my local grocery store. We almost always have at least one woman in front of it, begging for money. If I have the time and some spare change, I usually give it to them. That time, I had no money at all, only my credit card, which I told the woman who asked me. She then begged me to buy her something to eat for her 5 children. I, trying to be nice, said yes. In my mind, I would go in and buy her some rice, noodles or bread, something that could feed the family. But the woman stood up and came with me. She only spoke very little and broken German, my mother language, so I didn't really understood her. Then she took a cart, which confused me, but I went with it. We went inside the store. At first, she put some normal groceries in the cart, Nothing that I might have selected, but I was still fine with it. Then, I started having doubts as she put about 6 packs of coffee in, saying, "For me." I figured that this grocery run was going to give me good karma for the rest of my life, so I, begrudgingly, didn't complain. We went to the meats aisle and she started putting insane amounts of sausages in the cart. It was then that I thought to myself that she couldn't possibly want me to buy all of that for her, and tried to tell her that I wouldn't. She only shushed me and, in hindsight, probably pretended to, didn't understand me. I safely assumed that she'd only want me to pay for part of her groceries and had some money to pay for the rest of it. That assumption was only strengthened by her lacking understanding of German, which led to her often asking me where things were in the store. That made me think that she only needed someone to help her shop. Yes, in hindsight that was pretty naive, but trust me, it got much worse. We continued shopping, and the cart filled. To understand the full audacity of what she was planning on having me buy, some examples. Shampoo, not only normal one, but extra ones for dyed hair, some beauty products, and last but not least, cigarettes. All of that was accompanied by large amounts of food. We then went to the cashier, who scanned all of the items. At this point, I was sure that she had her own money to pay for all of it. Her and I meanwhile packed everything in several large bags. Then, the big moment came. The cashier announced, €240 please, and the woman pointed at me. I was absolutely shell-shocked. The situation was so unreal to me, I couldn't believe it. Immediately, I tried to explain that I couldn't pay for all of that, and didn't even have that much money with me. The woman tried a few more times and then just suddenly disappeared from the store. I was left at the cash register with €240 worth of groceries, a steady line of people forming behind me. And so, I did the only thing that seemed logical. I started to cry. I tearily apologized to the cashier, the people waiting in line, and the emergency supermarket workers called to carry away all of the food, and explained the situation. Luckily everyone was extremely nice and didn't see the fault in me, but I still felt sorry for them. This experience scarred me, but the craziest part is still the audacity of that woman. The next story is titled "Met My First Choosing Beggar on FB Marketplace. Faith in humanity is now further eroded." Today I had the great misfortune of meeting a choosing beggar from Facebook Marketplace to sell a $10 computer part. This isn't a rare or unique item, and my listing price was a pretty good deal. When we were chatting online, the villain in our story didn't try to negotiate, said he needed it ASAP and would pay over Venmo, and agreed to meet me at a local Starbucks on short notice. The guy shows up and asks to look at the item. First thing I notice about him is that he's a pretty big guy. I'm 6'4" and he made me look small. As he's inspecting it, he overshares about his life and why he needs the item. Whatever, I'll listen to a short rambling if it means I'll make a sale. He eventually sends me the Venmo payment and starts walking away. I check my phone and see he only sent me $8, so I stop him and tell him how it's $2 short. Immediately he's like, "Oh, it was $10. And begins scrolling through our chat history where he obviously finds nothing since he didn't negotiate. Then he checks my listing where he sees it's up for $10. He then makes this obviously scripted face as if a revelation came to him and says, "Oh, you know what happened? I was talking to some other guy who had it up for $8 and I mixed up the conversations." I'm like, "Okay, so can you send the $2? He starts saying how it was an honest mistake and it's totally on him. I start to think, at least he's owning up to it. Now if he could just pay me, until this gem leaves his mouth. So since I own my mistake, why don't you just take the $8 and we can call it a day? Skeptical smiley face. I tell him no, the item is up for $10, not $8. He then says, "Well, you see, I pre-added the money to my Venmo before I got here. I don't have any more money. Since that's not quite how Venmo works, you can pre-add money but you don't have to since it can pull straight from your bank as well." I'm like, "So you can't just add $2 from your bank to your Venmo?" He says no. Getting annoyed with the situation, I say, "Look, I'll send you back the $8 and I'll be on my way, no sale." He stammers and quickly blurts out, "Well, I have some change in my car." I ask, "Is it $2? He says no. At this point, I'm over this interaction so I say, "Okay, we're done here." He replies, "Look, I drove 30 minutes to get here. Don't tell me I came all the way out here for nothing." I give him a blank stare and he continues, "How old are you?" Being unsure of how that's relevant, I inflate my age by a few years in case he's trying to collect info for social engineering or something. He then goes, "Let me give you some advice because I'm older than you. I made an honest mistake and I owned up to it. At the end of the day, $2 isn't much. It's not worth it over being an honest person. Halfway through, I try to interrupt his bullcrap advice and he aggressively stops me and says, "Wait, let me finish." When he finally shuts his mouth, I say, "Let me give you some advice. It's not about the money, it's about the principle. You show up $2 short, you could say it's only $2. If I'm selling something for $500 and you show up with $200, you can't say it's no big deal. I don't care what the value is, a deal is a deal." He looks at me silently for a long time. At that moment I realize I'm in an empty Starbucks with a stranger twice my size. Ready to get the hell out of there, I say, "So either you magically come up with $2 or we're done here." Instantly, he Venmos me the $2, takes the item, and walks away upset without saying anything. I shout after him, "Enjoy. Because duck you cheap motherducker." I think I'm done with Facebook Marketplace now. The next story is titled False Advertising. I used to work for a company that sold phones from the big carrier, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, and AT&T, inside a big retailers like Walmart. Like all the carriers, we would have pricing next to the phones that would show the monthly price of the phone in big text and then full retail price of the actual phone in smaller text underneath. Unlike the carriers, Walmart actually puts huge discounts on the phones to help sell their stock. Occasionally we would get a kid going up to the phone saying, "Wow, this phone is only $30. And I would give my whole, "I wish," tell the kid the actual price, see them get upset and laugh it off with their parents. This story is about an adult doing the same thing. CB. "Wow, you guys are only selling this phone for $30. Me. "I wish. The actual price is $720. I point to the part of the sticker that shows the price. "The price you see here is how much the phone is broken down into 24 months with the carriers here. The phone he was looking at is usually $1,000, but like I said, Walmart likes to make deals." CB. "Well, I'm in. I got blank carrier. I want this phone right here." I say, "Cool," and gesture the guy to follow me to the computer I worked off of so we can get the transaction started. I get his number, scan the phone, and I get to the screen that asks if he wants to buy the phone out, put a down payment on it so the monthly is less, or just do the monthly. CB looking confused. "I thought you said the phone was on $30? Me in a confused tone. "Yeah, monthly. The price of the phone is way more than that if you want to buy it out." CB. "That not what you said, that's false advertising." He actually did raise his voice for that part. Me realizing that this guy probably didn't pay attention say, "No sir, that's not false advertising. If you were listening to me earlier, I told the cost of the phone monthly and outright." CB. "Well, I'm not paying no more than $30. He folds his arms and gives off a huff. Me. "Well, unfortunately I can't do that. If you want this phone then you have to choose what option works best." CB. "Well then sell me this phone for $30. He points to the display phone. Me. "You want the display phone for that price?" CB. "Yeah, since it's been in use you guys can obviously cut me a deal on that." Me. "I can't sell you that phone even if I wanted to. Either you get the phone I pulled out for you at normal price or you don't." CB. "Nope, it's $30 or no sale." Me. "Okay, no sale then, I guess we are done here, have a great day." CB then storms off stating that his carrier will cut him a deal and that he will come back and rub this in our faces. I shrug it off and continue working. Later in the day the closing shift guy comes in and I tell him about what happens. We both laugh a bit and I tell him to be on the lookout just in case he comes back. Just before closing time I get a Snapchat video from the guy on shift. The CB came back and tried to get a phone through us. My closer recorded towards the end of the transaction just the voices of this guy sounding defeated saying that his carrier wouldn't give him any kind of deal so he had to come to us again. I crap you not, I called my closing representative after like 10 minutes and we laughed historically on behalf of the CB. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.